Let's go back in time, almost a decade to be precise. Today's guest woke up and decided on a whim that he was going to track his calorie intake for the entire day. See, at 492 pounds, he knew he needed to lose weight, but before he started his journey, he wanted to have a clearer picture of what he was up against. The results of that experiment led to a strict regimen of calorie tracking, a massive 300-pound weight loss over the next 19 months, running marathons a year after that, and even being featured with his wife, who joined him in his weight loss journey on The Rachel Ray Show, The Today Show, and in Runner's World and Jet magazines. He started gaining weight again in 2014, which led him to start a podcast called What I Live For. The original goal was to chronicle his renewed weight loss journey, but it quickly pivoted towards interviews of other motivational and passionate people. I could talk for another hour at least about this guy, but I'm sure you probably just want to hear from him. Please welcome Willie Gillis. Willie, welcome to the JAK'ed Up podcast, brother. Glad to have you on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, man, I'm telling you, I have been, I connected with you through a couple different people, but mainly through Gormy. Gormy was on my show here a while back, and I've been binging all his content ever since. And then I ran across the podcast that you did with him, and then I've spent the last couple of days binging all your stuff. So I was like, but when I started listening to your content, I was like, you know what, I got to reach out to this guy. I got to get him on the show because your story is truly, truly inspiring. So with that being said, for all those out there who don't know you and know your story, give us a brief summary of your catalyst moment, that thing where you were at your rock bottom or whatever it was that you decided to turn your weight around and start this journey towards health and fitness.
Yeah. So I've tried to lose weight off and on for years. I could remember I've done Weight Watchers, I've done Jenny Craig, I've done like all kinds of different diets because I like to, I'm that kind of person that likes to experiment. Mm-hmm. So I have tried just about everything just to see what works for me and what doesn't.
Right.
And I got to a point in around the end of 2010 where my goddaughter was born, and I was like, I need to do something about this weight because if I don't, by the time she turns 5, I'm probably not going to be alive.
Right.
And so I took that moment and I kind of sat on it for about a month. And then the January of 2011, it was actually January 6, 2011. I said that I woke up one morning and I was talking to my wife and I was like, look, I want to lose weight. And then she's like, well, if you're going to lose weight, I'm going to do it with you. And
that's awesome.
Just ran out from there.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So now what were the first actions that you took from the moment where you made that decision? You talked with your wife and she decided she was going to join you. What were the initial steps that you took?
So the day before, which was January 5th, it was a Wednesday because I can remember this correctly. I downloaded an app called Lose It, and I just tracked all the food that I was eating that day, and just to see how many calories I was eating in one day. And when I was done with recording all the stuff from the beginning of the day to the end of the day, I ended up eating like 6,000 calories in one day. Wow.
And did you realize that you were eating that much before that time?
No, not at all. I had no clue that I was eating that much food. And that was really an eye opener for me because I realized that I was eating 3 times as much as the average person should be eating.
Yeah. I mean, the recommended daily allowance, as they say, for, they say a healthy diet is 2,000 calories. Now, myself being a nutrition, I know very well that can differ drastically. It can differ in your activity level, what your goals are, things of that nature. It's good to have a rule of thumb, and I guess 2,000 calories. If you're eating 2,000 calories, you're going to stay relatively healthy. You're not going to be starving yourself. So it's definitely a good place to start. Okay, so you did some tracking and you realized that you were eating a whole lot more calories than what the recommended daily allowances were. What did that do to you mentally? I mean, when you were actually able to look at it in black and white, so to speak, what did that do to your mindset, and how did that play into what you did following?
Well, I realized that I was eating way too much for just the average person, and I know a lot of that came from soda. It came from drinking like 2 liters of soda and things like that. So I cut that out first.
Yeah.
That was a big thing because I was like, I really don't need the soda. It was just something
Hmm.
that every time you had a meal, you would have some kind of soda with it, and so
Right.
I was drinking soda like water, and so I replaced that with something else. So I still have problems drinking water, but
Hmm.
I try to replace it with something else, like maybe a diet soda or anything like that, or just water itself.
Right.
And I saw that that was the way that I needed to go with just kind of reducing the amount of calories that I was putting in. And I dropped 11 pounds in that first week after cutting out soda.
Yeah, it's amazing what you can do. At my highest weight, I was 405 pounds, and at that point in time, I was drinking roughly about a gallon and a half to 2 gallons of Mountain Dew a day. And
Yeah,
in the first year after I found out I was a type 2 diabetic, the biggest change that I made was that I quit drinking soda. And when I did that, it was just like inside of a year, I lost 100 pounds. And it was by cutting out soda
exactly.
and cutting out the gluttony. And to be quite honest, I think soda played a big part in it because of all the sugar and constantly being up and down, my blood sugar levels and insulin spiking and things like that. I think that the soda in and of itself was actually causing part of the gluttony that I was doing, where I would sit down and eat a whole pizza or eat 2 or 3 Big Macs and drink a large vanilla milkshake. Those types of
Right.
things I think were actually driven by the soda.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's when I realized that the soda was one of the biggest parts of the way I was kind of treating my body and treating myself, was
Hmm.
that I had to cut that out.
Right.
And I didn't cut everything out. I cut everything out slowly. First I started with soda, and then I started with other things. But for the most part, like, I started with the soda first because I knew that that was the biggest thing that I had a problem with.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you look at it like this: if you're gonna say your caloric baseline is 2,800 calories, for example,
Yeah,
what sense does it make for you to drink 1,000 of those calories? Makes no sense.
exactly.
So if you cut out that soda and you switch to water or Crystal Light or even diet sodas, any of those things, you're opening up a window where you can actually put in more whole food and healthy nutrients, and which is a whole lot better for you in the long run than all the soda.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So now, when you okay, so you well. Before I go to the next subject, let me touch on this real quick. One thing that you said that is very important is that you didn't change everything all at once. That is one of the
Yeah.
biggest mistakes that most people make, because I can't tell you the amount of clients I've had come to me say, well, I know that I need to get healthy and I stop all this, and I can do it for a couple of weeks and then I'm right back doing the same old thing. It's because they're trying to change too much too fast. If
Yeah.
you take small
Exactly.
steps and make little changes, you can create lasting change. But if you try to do it all at once, you're never going to do any good. So now, with all that being said, when you got the most amount of weight loss? You had your initial weight loss, because I know that you lost a lot of weight and then you gained some of it back, and we're going to touch on that next. Yeah. But what did you get down to? What was your lowest weight in that initial weight loss phase?
The lowest weight that I got down to, so my highest weight was 492 pounds,
Right.
and the lowest that I got to was 192 pounds.
Wow. So
I
you lost 300 pounds
in 22 months. Yeah.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Okay, so now you got there. You achieved this massive weight loss goal, which is truly phenomenal. And then slowly but surely, you started gaining weight back. What do you think the factors were that played into that, as far as what changed, or what was it that you never dealt with to begin with that caused you to start gaining the weight back?
So so I work with a nutrition coach. That's Daryl Perry.
Okay.
And I've talked to Gormy about this too, because Gormy's had the same issues I had. But
Yes.
I got to the point where I lost 300, and then I got comfortable. I was like, okay, I can kind of let my foot off the gas, because I don't have to keep doing what I'm doing now.
Right.
And that was a mistake. That was a mistake on my part, because I realized that I still have those bad habits, and I did not work on those habits that led me to getting to 492 pounds in the first place. So I still had all of those. I call them demons. I still had all those demons still in my body already. So like I never really fixed those issues with food.
Right.
Getting to 492 pounds is not something that you just do because you want to do it. Like it's a reason why you do it.
Yeah.
And I realized that I got to that point because I did that to myself, and I didn't fix the relationship with food that I have now.
Right.
It's taken from the time that I lost weight the first time to now to realize that you have to work on a relationship with food, and you have to realize that food is not good or bad. You don't have to use food for emotions or anything like that. Like food is food, and that's it.
Right. Right. And it's funny because I've been going through some training recently in how different traumatic events that happen to us in our lives can cause disordered eating habits. There was actually a study called the ACEs study that was actually done, started back by a pediatrician some years ago, and it wound up turning into this big study, and a lot of mental health organizations use this now. The ACEs study is all about adverse childhood experiences, and you would be amazed at there's like 10 different factors on this ACEs scale, okay? And you would be amazed at how many people that have disordered eating habits have like 4, 5, or 6 or more of these things that they can remember from their childhood that have actually followed them into adulthood and actually contribute to a lot of this disordered eating. So it really speaks to the mindset. And the whole reason I got involved in this training that I'm doing now is because it fascinates me how much different things as I deal with more and more clients and I talk to more and more people, there are certain things that are a constant in, people's, the way they develop their eating habits and how they wind up getting to excessive weights and wind up with type 2 diabetes and things of that nature. But there are so many similarities. And then when you bring in this study, it's like, it's mind blowing how the mind affects the body, and then everything you do affects your health. So now there's a great book called, and I just read it recently. It's called The Body Keeps the Score. Yes,
and it's really about that, about how traumatic events really affect your body, and like how that stuff really kind of changes how you act within your body, and like how it really wrecks your body with traumatic events.
Yeah, because it's like people don't realize. We say this all the time, and even as I'm a father of 5, and for years I've said this. So my kids are resilient; they bounce back, they can take a lot, but we don't stop to think. Their actions at that point in time may look like they get past it. Their mind may get past it, but their body never forgets, and their body reacts. Exactly. There are even studies that link adverse childhood experiences to increased likelihood of heart disease and things of that nature. And it's all due to stress, different stressors and how people carry them. And disordered eating and problems with obesity and your weight, they're no different. At the end of the day, it's all about, you've got to figure out what is going on inside you that causes this behavior. It's simple cause and effect. And once you can identify those things, that's when you can start to change them and make positive, create positive habits that are going to improve your health and your life in general, plain and simple.
And I think that a lot of times that people and right now with all this pandemic stuff going on right now, it's a perfect time for people to actually slow down and realize that there's issues that they have never dealt with.
Right.
And so you have time to really sit with those feelings. And if you avoid your feelings and you use food to avoid feelings, then this is the perfect time to realize that and to really work on that stuff.
Yep, exactly. It's like I've had numerous people reach out to me in the last couple of weeks. And some of them have just been like, because I'm part of a mentorship program through a Facebook group, And between that and my online coaching, I've probably had several, I'd say as many as 10 in the last couple of weeks since all of the quarantine stuff has really gotten big. A lot of people are reaching out going like, the more I sit back and I look at the way I do things now, because I actually have time to stop and look at it, I realize that I need help in some of these areas. I have a habit of, I can't sit down and watch TV without eating some kind of junk food. I can't eat a healthy snack. It's got to be junk food, things of that nature. And when people really start to look inwards and have some self-reflection, it's amazing what they find. So now you lost 300 pounds. You started gaining it back because you didn't change your mindset. Basically, you didn't deal with some of the issues that got you where you were to begin with. But now along this process, from that point to where you are now, I mean, you and your wife have been on Rachel Ray, the Today Show. You guys have been featured in a couple different magazines. What was it like being in that light? Whereas, like, you're there and people are looking at you and you're basically an example. Whether you had started to gain the weight back or not, you lost 300 pounds. There's no denying that. Okay. And you did that by creating healthy habits to some degree. What was it like for you to be in that spotlight, and what kind of interaction did you get with people on a day-to-day basis because of it?
Well, I was grateful to get that opportunity for us to be on those TV shows and things like that. But I think in like the back of my mind, I think that a lot of it kind of like really kind of wore on me, because I'm not a kind of person that likes attention.
Right.
I don't seek out attention. So like for me to have attention on me and for her to have attention on her, if you mess up, like I see this with a lot of people who are on Instagram who have like huge followers, where if they start slipping back and people notice it, then they kind of call them out on it. I mean, like, what are you doing? Like, you're supposed to be Miss or Mr. Like, I lost this much weight and I'm keeping it off. But the realization is, like, a lot of people can't keep it off. I know a handful of people who have kept off their weight for a decade or more, and it's not that many.
Right.
And those people still have issues with food. So like, I think that for me, I just don't seek attention, and so to have that attention on me, I think it was a little too much for me.
Yeah.
And I think I just kind of just let it get to me, and then just like, oh, I can live a regular life and have all this attention on me. And I think that was the biggest thing about it, was that it was a little too much for me. Okay.
So you think it kind of distracted you from maintaining or even achieving a further goal? I can see that. I've spoken many times in the beginning of my weight loss journey, when I got to the point where I was like, okay, enough's enough. Playtime's over. It's time to go to work. One of the things early on that I came across was that if you wanted to be in, if you want to find the best way to make yourself accountable and keep yourself accountable, put yourself out there in social media. And that goes exactly to what you were just talking about, like these Instagram followers and whatnot. You put yourself out there on Facebook or YouTube or whatever the case may be. And, even like in my case, I wasn't as heavy as you, but I went from 405 pounds and almost dying and from a diabetic coma to where I am now. And I'm no longer at the healthiest that I was, because I'm human too. You know what I'm saying? I'm 53 years old, and I've had some issues. I've had some physical setbacks that have caused me to put some weight back on. Does that mean that, does that negate all the experiences that I had and, all of the stuff that I shared and in an effort to help people? No, it doesn't. And people have a tendency to get wrapped up in that. Now, when you're sitting out there and you've got 1 million followers on Instagram, yeah, you're under a microscope, and people, the trolls are out there, and they're going to be watching, and they're going to be like, hey, man, you're nothing but a bunch of crap because you say this, but you're doing this. We are all human. We all make mistakes. We all have our lives to live.
I remember, like, because from the time that I started my weight loss journey to like 2013, I was putting everything on Facebook.
Oh, yeah.
So anytime I would lose weight or gain weight, I put all of it on Facebook.
Yep.
Because Instagram wasn't for that then.
Right.
But a lot of that stuff I put on Facebook, and people were seeing like either me losing or gaining weight. But I think that social media has turned into a completely different animal now, where if you put your weight and stuff on there, and if you gain weight, the trolls come out and they're like vultures, and they come out and they just attack you. And if you're not mentally ready for that, that is a lot.
It is.
And I tell people, like, if you're not mentally ready to put all your stuff on social media and know that people are going to come after you just because you messed up, like, either you're ready for it or you're not, because people will come for you. And like people will praise you when you're like winning. When you start losing, they will attack you, and you will be like, where's this coming from? So like, you have to have thick skin when it comes to that if you're ready for it. You do.
And it's funny that you say that, because it's like one of the things that I do is I follow some people. They're on YouTube, Facebook. I think they have Instagram, but I mean, it's two people that work together. They're called live streaming pros. Okay. And I found them early on in my journey as far as becoming an online nutrition coach, fitness coach, things of that nature. I wanted to get in the online space because there aren't enough hours in the day for me to help people one-on-one at a gym and be able to reach the kind of people that I want to reach. So I realized that, even at my age and never having done anything like this before or whatever, I realized that I was going to have to venture into this online space if I wanted to get my message out there. So I'm scrolling through YouTube one day and I come across a video from Live Streaming Pros. And I followed a lot of their stuff. They've taught me a lot of the technical stuff as far as running the production by myself and all that stuff. But one of the things that I've really picked up on, that like right now they have this challenge that they're doing on Facebook. It's called LEDA. It's LEDA, live every day in April. And they give you different things to go on and talk about. And it's like each day is a mission. And you have to tackle that mission, whatever the case may be. And yesterday's mission was all about trolls. And, my mindset to trolls is exactly what I put in that group and exactly what I'll say here. In a world full of trolls, I'm an ogre. I'll eat the trolls. If you come trolling after me, you better know your stuff and you better be ready for me to put you down, because that's what I'm going to do. But some people just don't have that. They just don't have that grit inside. You know what I'm saying? They don't have that inner toughness, and they'll let trolls get to them. And anybody that is, I tell everybody that wants to do any kind, if they want to improve the quality of their life through health and fitness, put yourself out there. Put yourself out there in the online space, whether it's, I don't care if it's Facebook, Instagram, whatever it is, put yourself out there and continue to do it, and be ready for the trolls, because they're going to come after you. But if you can learn to deal with those trolls, that builds an inner strength that's going to help you on your journey. Exactly. And I'm sure you've realized this, in the time that, you went through, because I'm sure with being in magazines and stuff like that, anything that you do in like social media, people are all over you if you're doing anything, because you've got recognition that most people that just go out on social media don't get. So I can imagine where that would be pretty tough.
But for me, though, it was, I remember this very, very vividly, was I started gaining weight, and I didn't put it on social media at all that I was regaining weight.
Right.
But then I guess I would post pictures, and then people would not come to me about it. They would come to my wife about it and be like, hey, is Willie gaining weight? I'm like, why are those people asking you? They can ask me personally if they want to know. And they were going through her, and she was just like, I don't understand why they're asking me. Why don't I just ask you? And it was just weird. And I was just like, I don't know if they just didn't want to hurt my feelings or not, but I'm like, if you want to come to me about an issue, just come to me. Don't come to her.
Right.
Like, she's not my PR person. Like, just talk to me about it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So now you got to where you had gained, like, I believe it was almost half of the weight, if not a little more, that you lost, you gained back, correct? Now, once you decided to shift gears, one of the things that I know you did was you started a podcast. Now, the podcast originally, from my understanding, like I said, I've been binging. I went back to episode 1 and started listening all the way up through. And it seems to be that, like, in the beginning, the podcast was just about you sharing your feelings about your journey back to where you had gotten, and
Yeah.
how you felt about, you know, the whole weight loss journey and everything. But then it changed. It became something else. You started interviewing other people that were either on their journey or had completed their journey and stuff like that. So tell me how that went from being just like a self-reflection tool to being what it is now, where you interview people on a regular basis.
So what it was I made this podcast just because I wanted to kind of share it was kind of like a journal for myself. So like I was recording about all the stuff that I was going through with trying to lose weight again. And as I got through it, I started to realize that I didn't really like that format of just like me talking to a microphone and just having a conversation about just what I was going through.
Right.
So what I started doing was kind of taking that back and keeping that private to myself. So like I journal and I meditate and all that stuff like in the background. So like I do all that stuff personally, and I do share my gratitude list and stuff like that on Instagram every morning. But I kind of took all that stuff back into a private mode and just kind of sat on it for a little bit and let myself reflect on it myself. And so what I did was I switched the podcast format to more of a, let me interview somebody else and can I get some kind of weight loss insight from them that I can use in my own personal life? Right. And then that's what I did with it. I wanted to hear everybody else's story, because the first interview that I did was with my friend John, who I knew he had lost weight, but I also knew that he was an athlete. He was a runner, he was a powerlifter, he was a CrossFitter, and I wanted to interview people like that. The podcast originally was really supposed to be a video series I was going to do about just different people that I was inspired by. Right. But I wanted to do it some kind of audio format because video takes too long to do. So and that's what I did with it. I just wanted to interview people that I found very inspiring, and I could take stuff from their life and put it in my own.
Yeah. You know, I mean, I'm the same way. Now I still do recorded content where like I'm actually getting ready to finish up a series. I still have 3 parts left to do on weight loss myths and fitness myths. And I still like to do that type of stuff, but I'm much more, I prefer the interview and the whole podcast thing much more because it's, number one, it's more relatable to people. I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, me putting out, like I actually did a video on the whole ketogenic diet. I did like a keto 101, and I broke things down from a scientific level and looked at a couple different variants of the ketogenic diet. And I actually had a doctor that watched the video, and he messaged me, and he said, I've got to tell you, he said, for somebody that doesn't have any medical training, that's just a nutritionist and a trainer, the way that you described the ketogenic diet, its variants, and the pros and cons, he said, was absolutely amazing. He said, I'm telling you right now, he said, anybody that comes to me that is considering the ketogenic diet, I'm going to give them the link to your video and send them there to watch it because you did a fantastic job. So I enjoy doing that type of stuff, but this is my true passion. I like to connect with people because just like you, I learn different things from different people that I talk to. And it's good it's easier to interact. It's much more organic. Trust me, my recorded videos are like, I've got a teleprompter. Like right here is my camera. I can literally touch my camera, and I've got a 10-inch teleprompter screen right underneath of here. And I'm sitting there going, it's kind of robotic. And I guess I could do more of it and get better. But it's like, why, when I can interview people like you and we can share our experiences and talk about these different things, and it seems to get a lot more reaction from people.
Yeah. I've tried the YouTube thing. My wife still does vlogs and stuff, but I can't. Like, it's just not for me. Right. Because I just don't like, I really don't like, because I went to school for film and video production and stuff like that. And I like to be behind the camera. I don't like to be in front of the camera. So like I prefer doing audio because that's the thing that I really fell in love with when I went to school for production. Right. So that's what I work with now.
Yeah. And there's absolute, dude, I'll tell you, there's put my podcast out, both audio and video. Before I started all this stuff, I was never in front of a camera. Now, I was a DJ for 20 years. I have no problem with a microphone in front of my face. You know what I'm saying? I can walk around and talk and carry on with the best of them. But as far as sitting in front of a camera and trying to relay a message, I found it very, very difficult in the beginning. But this is what I love about today and the technology we have. I mean, you could literally sit down at your computer, plug a microphone in, or have a gaming headset and put that thing on, and you can go to websites like anchor.fm and you can have a podcast out there like right now. And podcasting is a fantastic way to get information out there to people from a real life basis. You know what I'm saying? Anybody can watch tutorials and you know, medical journal videos and things like that. That stuff's all over the internet. But when you can sit down and you can relate to somebody like you know, I was 405 pounds, you were 492 pounds, and you and we could flip a couple switches and we could sit here and we can have this conversation. And when it's all said and done and I put it out there, dude, other people are going to get benefit from that. And that's truly amazing to me, you know, without a doubt. So now, okay, so let's fast forward a little bit more and get to kind of where you are now. So you've gone through all these things and these different changes, and you know, you started to gain weight back and you started to work with an online nutritionist and things of that nature. What did you realize with working with the nutritionist that like shifted your mindset? What is your relationship to food now versus what it was then? And what was the process through working with him that got you to this mindset?
So I started working. So it was I recorded a podcast with somebody, and Daryl, who is my coach, he heard something that I said in it. I have no clue what he heard in the podcast, but he heard something that he didn't like. And he immediately messaged me. He said, "Hey, look, I heard you say such and such in this podcast, and I need you to work with me at least for a couple months, just to see if you like the kind of coaching style that I have." And the kind of coaching style he has is habit-based nutrition coaching. Right. So every 2 weeks you get a different habit to practice on, and then every 2 weeks, every 2 weeks you get a new habit, and you kind of rotate through those habits. Yeah. And so he was like, "Give me 2 months, and if it doesn't work, then we can just, you know, call it quits." And so that was in August of last year. Yeah. And you know, it's April of this year, and I'm still working with them. And then the program's like a full year, so I'm almost through with the whole year. That's awesome. I know it's a great program, and I'm glad he introduced me to it. I've learned so much about just food and the way that I use it as a coping mechanism. I use it as like to cope with emotions and stuff like that. So very early on, I realized that, hey, I need to work on this because this is dangerous. And I'm glad that I worked on it then, because now being in quarantine and stuff like that, I would still be in a worse place than I was back then. So the whole program really teaches you about like not using food to cope or using it for emotions. It's more about adding on a different habit, practicing that habit, and then it all kind of leads to this bigger picture of food is food, and that's all it's used for. It's not used to make you happy or sad. Food is not good or bad. Like food is just something for you to eat, and that's it. Food is fuel. It's not an activity. It's not an after school activity. It's not something it's not used for a celebration. It's food is food, and that's it.
Yeah, and we live in a society where people do use food to celebrate things. You know, it's like I just had all of my kids are grown. So what I do is like on the holidays, I will have like we had our Easter with all my kids yesterday. And we had a cookout, and we did, which explains why I look like I'm a burnt lobster here. I'm all sunburned up. But, you know, we had a cookout. We did the Easter egg hunt and everything yesterday. So that way, because they're all grown, they have their own kids, they can do their own thing on Easter Sunday. So, but, you know, you have situations like that where, you know, certain occasions and things like that, they're celebrated with food. The holidays, Christmas, Thanksgiving, all these things. And it's ingrained in our society and has been for so long. And people need to realize that just because on those particular days food is used to celebrate and things of that nature, it's not a habit that you want to continue long term, because it is unhealthy. What I have found, and a little caveat, I'm a lot like your coach. I'm extremely holistic. I want to get into your head. As a nutritionist, I want to know how you feel about food. I want to know how you feel at the time that you make a bad food choice and you decide to sit down and eat a pint of ice cream or stuff like that. Exactly. I want to know what's going on. I want to know what happened that day. Okay. And the reason is because there's always some underlying condition, belief, or behavior that causes you to use food as a coping mechanism or a way to cheer yourself up or whatever. And so many people don't realize that because it happens on a day-to-day basis and they don't think about it. You know, and it's there are a lot of nutritionists out there that just look at the black and white, look at the numbers, and say, okay, here you go. And that may work for some people, but when you're dealing with somebody like yourself, like me, I'm an emotional eater, dude. If I'm super stressed, oh man, if I'm super stressed, I will sit down with a bag of potato chips and that is gone. And I'm a type 2 diabetic. I shouldn't be eating that stuff anyway, but it's just how I am. You know, if I'm stressed, I'm going to eat, and I'm going to eat stuff that I wouldn't normally eat, because on a day-to-day basis, I follow a ketogenic protocol. So I rarely eat more than 20 or 30 grams of carbs. But if I'm stressed, it's nothing for me to sit down with a pint of ice cream, a bag of potato chips, or whatever. Go ahead.
I was just saying, I when I started working Daryl, I wanted to work on the habits itself. I wanted to work on the mindset stuff first,
right,
and then get back to just, all right, if I have my mindset right, what do I need to eat to keep this mindset right? And then on top of that, and then I got to the point where I was like, all right, I need to be in a calorie deficit. And then that was the third part of it. And so like it just, everything kind of built on each other. So like that worked for me. And that's been from August till now, but it's been working for me.
Yeah. And see, people take, they hear that, okay, in order to lose weight, you have to be in a calorie deficit. And then you have people that go crazy with that. And then the next thing you know, they're at a calorie deficit of like 1,000, 1,200 calories, and that's not healthy. Okay, you wind up losing weight, but you'll wind up losing lean muscle tissue along with fat, and you want to keep that. So I worked with one guy that he was doing powerlifting and whatnot, and he was doing powerlifting, but he was trying to lose weight because he had gotten to the point where he took the traditional powerlifting path. He was eating like 6,000-7,000 calories a day. Okay. And he was overweight when he started it. Now, was he gaining strength? Absolutely. The dude was a beast, but he was picking up a lot of weight too. And he got to the point where the coach he was working with, all she knew was powerlifting. She had no idea how to train this guy to keep his strength yet lose the weight. And
that's hard.
It is. It's extremely hard. And I started working with him, and all I did was, because when he decided he wanted to lose weight, he went from eating 6,000 calories a day to I think it was like 2,100 or 2,200 calories. His basal metabolic rate with his size was 3,600 calories, which meant for a healthy weight loss, the least he should be eating was like 3,000 calories a day. So I switched him from where he was at, bumped him up to 3,000 calories, and in like 8 weeks, he lost 60 pounds. And it was because his metabolism started working how it was supposed to work, and he was actually able to reap the benefits of all the work he was doing in the gym. He still maintained his strength, he wasn't weak, and he lost weight. And that's what people don't get, man. It's mindset. Mindset is key. You've got to have the mindset first, but then you've got to have the right information. You've got to know what you're working with, and that's where working with a coach comes in handy. If you are working with somebody that is knowledgeable and doesn't just hand out cookie cutter diets and weight loss and workout programs, you're gonna see results.
Yeah.
So
and that was a good thing about working with Daryl was that Daryl knows me personally, so he knows that I'm an experimenter. I like to I've experimented with fasting, I've experimented with keto, I've experimented with paleo. I've done different kinds of things. So like I'm always that kind of person that wants to see where the body can go.
right.
But this right here the mindset wasn't there yet. So he saw that the mindset wasn't there yet. And he's like, let's fix that, and then everything else can kind of fall into place.
Right. So, now, since you started working with him, because you said that was like August of last year.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
How much weight have you lost since you started working with him and gotten your mindset straight?
So what I did was I started working with him in August, and I told him, I was like, weight loss is not the big ideal right now.
Okay.
I put weight loss on hold just to fix my relationship with food. So from August until probably around February, I just worked on mindset. And then when February hit, I went running with the weight loss. So as of yesterday, I've lost 16 pounds in about 5 weeks.
Yeah.
So yeah.
That's great. Yeah. You know, most people don't realize everybody wants to lose 30, 40, 50 pounds and they want to lose it right now.
No.
You know, let me ask you a question, Willie. When you gained back half the weight that you had lost, did you do that in a week? Did you do that in 6 weeks? No, it was probably longer than that, right?
It took years.
Exactly. You know, you don't get to 300, 400, 500 pounds in 6 months. So why do you expect to lose that much in 6 months? You know what I'm saying? And the fact that
I really got upset with somebody today because they said they started losing weight on April 1st, and then what's today, April 12th? They were like, I only lost 4 pounds. It's like, you lost 4 pounds in 11 days. Be happy about that.
Right. You know, a healthy weight loss is 1 pound per week. That's a healthy weight loss, dude. Any more than that, well, I won't say, all right, let me back up. The recommended healthy weight loss is 1 pound a week. Now, can you lose 2, 3, 4 pounds a week and still be healthy? Yes. For example, if you go on a ketogenic diet, the first couple of weeks you're on a ketogenic diet, dude, you're going to drop all kinds of weight because once you stop eating carbohydrates, you stop holding on to the water that those carbohydrates need to be stored. As you lose water, you lose weight. But there's a difference between healthy weight loss and sustainable weight loss. Okay. 1 or 2 pounds a week is healthy. And 3 or 4 pounds is okay, but you're not going to sustain that long term until you reach your goal. And you need to have that mindset going in. If you don't, what's going to wind up happening is you're going to fall victim to what everybody else does. They get that initial burst of weight loss on the diet and they're like, oh, I'm doing great. And then it slows down. And then they're like, well, hell, this diet ain't working no more. I got to get something else. And they wind up giving up before they could actually achieve the benefits that they could get from that nutritional protocol to begin with. And
I laugh though because people go on that. Have you seen this? Whether it's the Instagram apology tour, they're like, "Oh, I only lost 0.8 pounds. I don't know what I did wrong." I'm like, "Just you lost 0.8. You lost something. Like take it."
Hey, if you're trying to lose weight, if you lose half a pound, that's a half a pound that you did have that you don't have now. You know,
exactly.
People are too hard on themselves, and if you don't keep a positive mindset going into this, it will literally kick your ass. There's absolutely no doubt about it. It will, because people that are at a weight where they're concerned about it enough that they actually want to lose weight, it's a sensitive issue for them. And when they hit those plateaus, they're like, oh, I can't do it. I'm just never going to be able to lose weight, and they give up. And it drives me crazy, man. It really does. I gotta say, I got into being a coach because I love to help people. I really do. It is my passion. I'm absolutely obsessed with it. I have told many people that if I have my way before I die, if I don't wipe out obesity, I'm going to take a chunk out of its ass. That's how I feel. Because it's when you sit back and you look, Willie, when you look at things, everybody's all flipping out about COVID-19 right now. And I'm not saying that it's not a serious thing, because it is. Okay, COVID-19 right now, I think they're saying is like it's killed 15 or 16,000 people. The flu killed 60,000 people last year and does it every year. Obesity Let's look at how many people die from obesity-related issues every year.
I already know where this is going.
Man, you know what? I don't even want to look at the stats because it's in the millions. It is in the millions. Actually, I believe I just saw a stat here not too long ago where it's 180,000 people a year in the United States alone die from obesity-related issues. Yeah. 60,000 people in the United States alone wind up having a body part amputated from the effects of type 2 diabetes that's brought on by their obesity. Come on. What do you have to do? Be hit in the head with a brick? It's right there, black and white. You can look at it. There are research papers everywhere about how obesity affects so many issues in the human body. And then you have people, I don't like to shame people or call them out or whatever, and I don't know the girl's name, and it's probably a good thing I don't. But there's some girl, I think she's on Instagram, and she weighs like 600 pounds, and she's just happy as a clam. She's like, there's nothing wrong with me. Girl, don't tell me there ain't nothing wrong with you. You've got health issues. You may not be dealing with them right now. You may not be losing a finger or a toe or some stuff like that, but you've got health issues, and they're going to rear their head soon enough. Excess body weight, scientifically, is not good for you, especially in the midsection. Visceral fat is extremely hard on your body organs, but people don't understand. And
I don't let them. I just let them do whatever they're going to do.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, the only thing I can control is what I put in my mouth and the way I think.
You're absolutely right.
And if that's the way they think, then I let them do what they want to do.
Yeah, I don't. That's what I say. I don't comment on people. I don't troll them because, I don't believe in all that. I don't tell them, well, you're an idiot. You should be losing weight. I don't say anything. As much as there's times, trust me, there's times, Willie. I'm a very passionate person when it comes to this. I tell people this all the time. It's like I go live on Facebook in a couple different groups through, on a weekly basis. And I warn them straight up, look, I'm extremely passionate about this. You get me on a subject that gets my dander up, and you're going to hear some colorful language. I'm going to put it out there because I'm just real and I'm raw with it because it aggravates me. I almost died from it. I almost left 5 kids with no father from this shit. Do something. Get up. Yeah. I tell people all the time, I don't care. Get up and walk around your house a couple times. You're quarantined? Fine. Get up and walk around the house 3 times. Go back in the house. You did something. Walk up and down your steps 5 or 6 times. You did something.
I think the quarantine is probably the best thing for a lot of people because I've seen so many more people. And I live in Texas, so like people don't really go outside. It's too hot. I've seen so many people go outside more now than they would ever have gone outside. So like, if this is what what we have to do to get people to go exercise, go for it. Like if that's what you want to do. Like if you're tired of sitting in the house watching Netflix and eating whatever, go outside. Go for it.
Yep, it is. The fresh air is good for you. The sun's good for you as long as you use sunscreen. But I don't know, man. I always am looking for ways to try to get through to people, and there are some people that like, if you tell them, hey, look, A, B, and C happens in the body, and this creates D, E, and F. If you lay things out to them like that, they get it. And then other people, they just don't. It's like a lot of the clients that I have are either on a low carb or zero carb diet. And the reason for that is, and they either have like some sort of metabolic condition like type 2 diabetes or things like that. But what I explain to them is and this is the thing that helps them understand. When you understand what protein does in the body, when you understand what fat does in the body, when you understand what carbohydrates do in the body, you can eat 5 times as much fat as you should eat in a day. You know what's going to happen? You're going to get rid of it in the bathroom tomorrow. Okay. Protein. You can eat 2 or 3 times as much protein as you need to eat today. You're going to get rid of it in the bathroom tomorrow. But if you eat 2 or 3 times as many carbohydrates as you need, your body stores them as fat. It does not expel them, does not get rid of them. It stores them as fat. Runs to the liver. The liver fires up lipogenesis. I'll get it out here in a minute. And then it stores it as body fat and starts looking for places to put it. That's what people don't understand. I'm not saying carbs are evil, and I never will. There are a lot of people that don't function well on a ketogenic diet. They function better eating carbohydrates. That's great. Don't eat too many of them. Just don't eat too many of them. Eat 100 grams of carbs a day.
That's what I do.
Yeah.
And that's what I do. I've experimented with keto, and I just didn't do well with it. So what I did was my diet now is mostly protein. It's protein, veggies, fats, and proteins, fats, veggies, and then carbs to finish it off. And that's what I do.
Yeah. Because most veggies, with any carbohydrates that come along with the veggies, you got fiber, so that kind of counteracts a little bit. And that's the thing. But we live in a society, dude. I don't know. Last week's episode of the JAK'ed podcast had Vinny Tortorich on it. Vinny Tortorich is a guy who was a celebrity trainer back in the 90s. Late 80s, early 90s. He's a podcast host. He's written a couple different books. He just did a movie, had it released last year, was called Fat, a documentary. I watched this thing, and I'm going to tell you what, when it gets into the whole process of how fat got villainized, fat was bad, you can't eat fat, you shouldn't eat fat, all that stuff. And I'm going to tell you, when you sit back and you look at the science and the way this movie breaks all this stuff out, it'll blow your mind. It'll absolutely blow your mind. And it's like, no, don't eat fat. Eat a bunch of carbs and sugary grains and all this other stuff. And I'm sitting back at that long before I saw this movie. As I start to watch it, I'm like, all the stuff that I'd learned going into this, I'm like, and I was alive back in the 70s and late 60s and whatnot, but I never made the correlation. And then when I watched this movie, I was like, you know what? These people the people that were making these recommendations were out of their mind. Let's take saturated fat out of the diet, which your body uses to make cell membranes and other tissues in the body. Let's take all that out of the diet and let's add in carbohydrates. No, bad plan. Bad plan.
I remember all of that. Like I remember, I grew up in the 80s, so like I remember in the 90s it was low fat everything.
Yes.
In the 90s, it was from low fat everything in the 90s, and I think every decade or so it switches. It goes from low fat to low carb to high fat. Like it switches every decade.
It seemed like it up until now. Yeah, it does. It's really seemed like it up until now, but the science is really starting to ring true, and what they're starting to realize is that because as time goes on, they have longer to study things. Exactly. And what they're realizing is that out of all the macronutrients in the body that you ingest, what they call exogenous macronutrients, okay, carbohydrates are the only ones that you do not need. And the reason for that is this: your body can generate glucose. Your liver can take fatty acids and can take, protein, amino acids, and it can create glucose in the body, gluconeogenesis. So you don't have to ingest carbohydrates to get that glucose, but your body cannot generate saturated fat if it doesn't eat it. It cannot generate protein out of thin air. You have to have protein in your diet. So when you look at the three macronutrients, which one is the one that you don't need? Carbohydrates. Now, like we were just saying, there's nothing wrong with eating them, but if you don't absolutely have to have them in your diet, you don't want to be eating a whole lot of them because your body doesn't need them, and the only thing it's going to do is store them as fat. So, and
I've definitely been experimenting with that with Daryl. I told him that let me cut back because my calories are dropping every time I lose weight. So I'm like, let me cut back on the carbs and see how I feel without them. So I've been slowly cutting them back every other week.
Yeah. So, it does. It's a big thing. It's like there are two main fuel sources. Well, ATP is the main fuel source in the body it's like the energy currency. It's like the money that the body spends to create energy or to have energy. Yeah. But there's two energy substrates that the body uses. There is glucose, which comes from carbohydrates, or there's ketones, which the liver also generates those from fatty acids, turns them into ketone bodies. You have beta hydroxybutyrate and two other ones. And what a lot of people are finding now is that especially like people that work out in a gym, they use exogenous ketones along with carbohydrates in moderation. And what they wind up doing is, like, when they go into the gym, their workouts are much more sustainably fueled. Okay. For example, if you take 40 grams of carbohydrates and you take a dose of an exogenous ketones, which would typically give you like 4 millimolars of ketone bodies floating around in your bloodstream. Okay. You take both of those at the same time, and then an hour later you go to the gym. When you go to the gym, while you're working out, the first thing you're going to do, your body's going to burn up all the ketones first. Because out of the two, when both of those are floating around in the bloodstream, your body can use ketone bodies quicker because the molecules are smaller. Okay?
Yeah.
So you fire up all the ketones, you use all those, and then you have all the glucose that you ate beforehand. You have that left to finish off your workout. And by doing it that way, you're not eating too many carbohydrates and storing them as fat. But this is all stuff that science didn't know 10, 15, 20 years ago that they're discovering now. And that's the amazing thing. I mean, I'm signed up to several different message boards that anytime new research comes out, I get a notification and I go and I spend 3 or 4 hours reading a bunch of stuff, because the more I know, the better equipped. It's like a knight with his armor. You know what I'm saying? Every time one of these research studies comes out, that's just another chunk of armor that I can put on, that I can take into battle and try to help people lead healthier lives.
I love people who do that stuff. Like Greg, there's a guy named Greg Knuckles that does that. Jeff Nipper does this a lot on his YouTube channel.
Yeah,
they go through all those studies and like break it down for you.
Yes,
and it's great.
Oh yeah, because trust me when I tell you, when you sit there and read those studies, unless you're used to doing it, the average person goes and tries to read those studies, and you're just going to lose them in about 30 seconds. They're going to be like, once you get past the abstract theory, you might be okay, but in the beginning, it's just going to be like, nope, it's not going to work. It's not going to work. Okay, so let me ask you the final question that I ask everybody that I have on the show. If you could do one thing to affect health and fitness on a global level, what would it be?
I would say work on your mindset first. If your mind's not right, everything, like the mind is your foundation.
Right.
And everything else sits on top of that foundation. If your mind has a crack in it, everything's going to fall like in between it. Like everything's going to fall with it. Like the foundation's not set. So everything else is just going to fall. So like anything else like that, you have to work on that first. So you need to work on, why are you eating the way you're eating? Why do you think food is good or bad? Don't restrict yourself. Like if you want to have, and I tell this on Gordon's podcast too, like if you want to have a donut and you enjoy donuts and you're thinking about it for weeks on end, just go have the donut. Don't restrict yourself from having stuff. Like, because the longer you restrict, and I used to have a problem with restrictions, but if the longer you restrict yourself, the more you're going to want it, and then the more you're probably going to eat 10 times more of it. Yeah, you binge. So you're going to binge. So like if you want to have the Reese's or the donut or the chocolate cake that your grandma makes every Thanksgiving, just have it. Like, don't worry about it. It's one choice. Everybody has a choice when it comes to food and exercise. You try to make I have this whole scale of good, better, and best. Like, try to make the best choice, but some stuff is just going to be like the good or okay choice. It's going to happen. But make the choice, have it, and move on. Don't let it wreck. I see a lot of people wrecking their day. They're like, oh, I had a cake, so I'm going to have, well, my whole day's blown, so I'm just going to have everything else that I want. Just make the one choice, have it, and move on. And that's it. I agree, man. I agree. Truer words have never been spoken, brother. So many people don't realize how much the mind affects everything that we do. And there are intricacies inside this 2 million year old piece of software here that, something will happen and it'll trigger a response, and that response triggers another response. And then the next thing you know, you're binging. I think I wanted to go back and touch on one thing that you just said, and I think it's very important. If you're one of those people that
you crave donuts, and you crave donuts. You shouldn't eat them, but it's just one of those things that every now and then you just have to have one. You're exactly right. Don't beat yourself up about it. Plan for it. Okay? I'll give you a prime example. Yesterday, I had my Easter thing with my kids. I had potato chips, and I had cookies, and I had ice cream. Today, I'm fasting. I'll fast. I'll eat one meal today, and it'll be later, and it'll be protein and fats. That'll be all it is. There are ways that you can still live your life and enjoy it, but you just have to be mindful. You have to be mindful, and people have to be educated, man. They do. Everybody has this idea of, if you want to lose weight, you either have to be on a diet or you don't. No, bullshit. You don't. You just have to be knowledgeable in the fact that I should be eating X amount of calories a day. I should have X amount of protein, X amount of fat, X amount of carbs. But if today I decide that I'm going to eat more carbs, then I need to adjust the calories that I eat from the other sources. And then I need to make sure that the next day I do something to kind of counteract things, whether it be make sure I get in a workout or things like that. There are so many things that people can do by themselves if they just have a little bit of knowledge. But unfortunately, so many people don't. But that's where working with a coach comes in handy. I mean, are there resources out there that you can find? Absolutely. But I mean, you can attest to this just as much as anybody else, because what got you to the point where you are now after you were back on the upswing with your weight was finding that coach. It helped you to change your mindset on food, helped you change your relationship with food, and now you're on the path to getting right back where you were before.
Exactly.
So that's awesome. All right, my friend. Well, I'm going to let you go. I sure do appreciate you coming on the show, and I want to come on your show one time. As soon as you're ready, you let me know. I'd love to come on there and share my story and my knowledge and make a few people laugh. And I don't know, maybe they'll tell me to leave. I don't care. It doesn't really matter to me. I like talking to people, so it's all good. As your journey progresses, come back every now and then and give us an update. Let us know how you're doing. I'd love to have you back.
I definitely can do that.
All right, do me a favor real quick before we go. Let everybody know all your socials, where they can find you. I'm going to put the links in the show notes too, but why don't you go ahead and give them a rundown where they can find you on social media?
The main source of social media is on Instagram. It's just my name, @Willie Gillis. And my podcast is called What I Live For, and you can find that on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
That's awesome. That's awesome. All right, brother. I appreciate it. Well, listen, guys, if you got value out of this video, which I'm sure that you did, be sure that you hit the subscribe button, as well as to click the bell so you get notified when the new episodes of the Jacked Up podcast drop. Until I see you again, you know my mantra, playtime's over. It's time to go to work.